Hello, 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 Zoinked podcast viewers, and welcome to episode 9 for our second in-person podcast here at BLV Studios. In this episode, we are talking about fantasy football and answering a lot of hot fantasy topics right now. I'm Walker Weiss, joined alongside co-host Ethan Varnicle and Sam Howie. Now, let's get into it. Our first question is, what player is the fantasy MVP right now?
All right, I guess I'll start us off tonight. I am going to go with Josh Jacobs. I mean, he's somebody who I didn't really think was going to be much of a fantasy stud this year. I think some of us might have seen him taking a step back, but he's just been carrying teams, I feel like, the entire year. Well, teams being like fantasy managers, but he's got 1,159 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns, and at this point, he has not had a game under 50 yards at all.
That's pretty good.
So, and I think he's gonna keep at it. And if you drafted Josh Jacobs, you're in good hands.
Yeah, so I was thinking about drafting Josh Jacobs, but
I did in my other league actually.
yeah, I saw his play in the preseason. I was like, oh, he looks pretty good, but I didn't, and I regret it. But so I'm gonna go with Kenneth Walker. He's got 20 points per game ever since he became the starter when Rashad Penny got hurt. And the Seahawks are really relying on their run game to open up the pass game. And they've been in really tight games throughout the whole NFL season. And I do not see Kenneth Walker taking a step down at all. They're going to keep running with him, which is going to increase his touches and more points. So I think that, got Kenneth Walker.
I agree with that. But yeah, this is a really tough one to answer, but I'm going to have to go with Patrick Mahomes II. He leads all fantasy with 288.8 points, which is 0.3 more than Josh Allen, and Hurts is right behind them with 273.1 points. I think Mahomes will finish with the most points as well since he has an easier schedule than the Bills do the rest of the year. Mahomes overall has been more consistent, with his lowest scoring game being week 2 with 17.3 points. Allen's lowest was 12.58 in week 11.
All right, our next question will be, which rookie will put up the most fantasy points by the end of the season? I think it's going to be Kenneth Walker, just like my first answer. Chris Olave would be another good one, but he's not very consistent with Andy Dalton at quarterback. And Kenneth Walker has been putting up, like I said, 20 points per game ever since he became the starter. And I don't see that changing. And I think that he's going to be actually a league winner. League winners are late round picks, and mostly everybody got him off the waivers, or they drafted him 9th, 10th round. So I think that he's very good. Nice.
So for this one, I actually did go with Olave, and I think fuck you, Ethan. But I mean, listen, I think he's been one of the most consistent parts of the Saints offense all year. He's making a legitimate case for offensive rookie of the year. And Ethan, you mentioned having Dalton as a quarterback doesn't help, but I think that makes him better because, if he can put up these type of stats with Dalton as his quarterback, I mean, he could probably do it with any QB.
Yeah.
And stats is on the year, 822 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he's just been very, very good for that team. He's brought a spark to their offense. So I think Chris Olave has been one of the better rookies for sure.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed in the Saints this year. I really thought that they were going to make a run. Jameis Winston at QB. And
the more games the Saints lose, the better, because the Eagles benefit from it. We got a top 10 pick right now, and I love that. So sucks for you, Ethan, but it's great for me and Walker.
I can tell you that Jabu is a bum. So,
yes.
But yeah, anyways, I'm going to pick against Chris Olave as well. I'm taking Kenneth Walker. He still has 6 games left in the season. I said I'm picking Kenneth Walker, not Olave. I said,
Oh,
yeah, I said
oh
not-
yeah, it's my bad. Sorry.
But he still has 6 games left in the season. Olave is ahead of him currently by close to 10 points, and Damian Pierce is a little below Walker, but only has 5 games left as well and has seemed to struggle in most recent games. Seattle's offense has been very solid all season behind Geno Smith, and I feel like Walker has the best chance to put up high numbers consistently, with Olave being a close second. So moving on to question number 3, what player has been the biggest surprise throughout the season so far?
So I tried to see if I could find any other players that might be a surprise, but ultimately I think to me it came down to Geno Smith. I mean, was literally a backup QB in a starting role when the season started. And he's taken a team that was projected to have a top 5 pick in the draft, and he's kept them above 500. I mean, what he's done with Seattle is awesome. You know, you don't normally see this type of stuff from guys like Geno Smith, and he's been in the league for 10, 11 years now, something like that. He's been a backup the entire, not the entire time, but for most of the time. Yeah, exactly. So
no one expected this from him this year.
Nobody. Literally nobody at all. So yeah, Geno Smith is definitely the biggest surprise to me.
He went beast
Pretty
mode.
valid. All right. Well,
Ethan said, "All right."
I'm gonna go with Josh Jacobs. With this one, this might be a surprise, because I know he's first couple rounds, but I really think if you picked him, you're probably gonna win your league. He's got 22 points per game after a shaky start. I know his first 3 games he was averaging, I think, around 9 points per game, which that's not gonna get you a win. And the Raiders are finally getting their act together. The offense is starting to look like they should. And Jacobs is going to continue to run the ball, and I don't think anybody else in that offense is gonna run the ball except him.
Yeah, unless your name's Connor Phoenix with Josh Jacobs, then you're not winning your fantasy league. But,
shout out to our boy Connor Phoenix.
But the biggest surprise so far for me this season has been Justin Fields, who is currently the number 6 fantasy QB with 235 points, averaging 21.4 points per game. Even though the Bears aren't that great this year, Fields has balled out on offense, rushing for some insane numbers. So he's my surprise pick because I never would have thought he'd be number 12 overall in the fantasy rankings. Close second would be Geno Smith, who's currently number 17 overall.
Imagine the Jets took Fields over Wilson.
Oh,
How different
man,
of a team they'd be.
Yeah, dude,
They'd
that
be
would
very good this year.
Amazing for them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They have. I could see them having at least 2 losses
That sucks.
at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But oh well, sucks for the Jets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, Zach Wilson's too busy slaying moms.
Yeah, he is.
Even the moms aren't gonna want him after this season. Shit.
All right, moving on to question number 4. Is Deshaun Watson and Odell Beckham Jr. worth the roster spot on your fantasy football team if no one has grabbed them already? So I have Watson is, but OBJ is not. OBJ will not be a number 1 wide receiver to the team he goes to. I don't think that he's going to be fully healthy. And he doesn't want to be the number 1 guy. He wants to be the guy which they can rely on for a big play. And Watson, on the other hand, I think he's going to be a great QB for the Browns, and I think he is totally worth the pickup. I think that he's going to have a shaky start, but he's going to have a great season. He's got good weapons: Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. He's got all the weapons that he needs. And even when he was on the Texans and they were struggling a little bit, he still bought out. So I think that he deserves a spot on your roster. So pick him up while you can.
Well, none of us can, unfortunately, but
I wasn't saying just you, Sam.
you know what, Ethan?
Hell yes, they're worth a roster spot.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what you say. I mean, I agree with Watson, but anyways, I'll start off with Watson here. Deshaun Watson is easily a top 10 quarterback in this league, and the Browns will look a lot better with him as their QB. I don't care how many people are in your league. If you only have one QB or your backup QB has scored less than Justin Fields, roster this man. And with OBJ, I'd say drop your worst player in your team and go get that man ASAP because he's going to be a beast on whatever team he goes to and be a double-digit scorer every week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why it would hurt to pick either of them up for your team. I mean, the only thing I would really worry about with Watson is the fact that he hasn't played since 2020, but I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be a necessarily a concern going down the stretch. But yeah, I really don't think you would have anything to lose, especially if you have nothing to lose. So yeah, go get him if you can.
So moving on to question number 5, who are the top players to pick up in free agency in your leagues?
I guess I'll start. So for this one, I will go with the guy behind Zach Wilson, Mike White, because he's been very good when called upon. He hasn't been trash. He's actually been solid. He put up 400 yards against the Bengals last year in one of his starts. He put up 300 yards on Sunday, put up 3 touchdowns as well. I think the Jets could really I think they're really going to benefit with having Mike in as their quarterback. So yeah, get Mike White if you can.
So I'll do a different league than they're in. The top one right now is Kenny Pickett, quarterback. They're projected the most. But I'm going to go with Michael Carter and Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks is averaging 17 points per game the past 2 games, and he's getting 10 targets. I feel like he's worth a roster spot on your fantasy team for a backup. And then for Michael Carter, I don't really think he's worth it. He hasn't been playing too well, and they were way better options than him.
So the players I picked, I got Nico Collins, Kenny Pickett, Matthew Wright, and Foster Murray are a few players I came across. Worth picking up if you're looking for a wide receiver, quarterback, kicker, or tight end. I feel like they would be a good spot. I just picked up Nico Collins. I think he's had double digits the past 2 or 3 weeks, like scoring 10 points, something like that. And he's getting targets for the Texans, so I feel like he's definitely worth a pickup.
All right, moving on to question number 6. Sorry, boys.
No, you're
Messed this
good.
up. Josh Jacobs has been a surprise for the most part for fantasy managers everywhere. Could you see him breaking 2,000 yards on the ground come the end of the regular season? I'll start. I'm going to say no, he won't be able to. He would have to average 200 yards a game for the next 5 weeks, and I don't see that happening. That's just absurd. There's no way he's going to get 200 yards unless he breaks out for 350 yards one game or another game. But no, it's not going to happen.
No effing way.
I mean,
That would be insane.
I don't know who the
Yeah.
hell came up with this question, but there is no way.
Ham Sally.
it's ham salad. I mean,
No,
listen,
Sam,
listen.
I'm just messing with you, bro.
Hey, I don't take anything personally. But hey, you never know, right? You never know. I mean, like you said, 200 yards is per game is pretty uncommon for any player.
Unless you're a quarterback, but that's
Oh yeah, okay. If you're a quarterback, that's different. But yeah, he's got 1,159 yards on the ground so far. Maybe if he's putting up 100 yards a game, then maybe. But we're in week 13. There's 6 weeks left during the regular season. So I don't know. It's not unlikely, but it's also not likely either.
yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense the way I just put that, but you watch it back and you can figure it out later.
All right, fair enough.
Okay. So, yeah, Josh Jacobs currently is rushed for 1,159 yards on the season with 6 games left. I don't think that'll be enough to net 2,000 yards. I think he will finish with around 1,700 yards rushing. If he could run for like 150 yards every game, he would definitely get there, but that's just not realistic. 6 games this season, he's rushed for under 100 yards and 5 over 100, with one of them being his 200-plus yard game, which was last game. He had 229 yards rushing in total. So that moves on to our next question. Deshaun Watson will be starting for the Browns on Sunday against the Texans after being away from the NFL for 2 years. Could he potentially be a late season MVP come week 18?
I'm going to for this question. I'm gonna say no. Like I said earlier, I think he's going to show off some rust for like the first maybe game or two, maybe 3. Ultimately, I think next year is when we're gonna see his best stuff with the Browns because he hasn't played since 2020. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be at this point in the year somebody who's gonna get the Browns in the playoffs. But maybe might be able to get like a solid game or 2 out of him in fantasy. But I don't think he's gonna be like crazy.
Cap.
I say yes. Why not? He went off on the Texans when they were struggling. This kind of goes back to my answer for question 4. He's got all the weapons he has: Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Nick Chubb.
He does have a good amount of weapons.
Yeah, and he's very good at rushing too. I don't know how good his cardio is right now because he hasn't played since for 2 years.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure he's been in the gym working.
yeah,
of course.
yeah. And fantasy QBs they get a lot of their points from rushing. Like Jalen Hurts this past week, he went off and had a ton of fantasy points because he rushed for over 100 yards. But yeah, why not? If you need a QB, he'd be great for a pickup. If your quarterback's not averaging like I want to say 17 points per game, if you're in a league where it's 4 points for a touchdown pass, yeah, pick him up.
I'm going to say like 18
Yeah.
or, probably like 18.
Yeah, because I'm in a league where it's 6 points for passing touchdowns. So so Justin Fields has been putting up a ton of points, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know it's different.
So I said yes, he could become a huge role for fantasy owners that are weak at the QB position and need someone that'll put up consistent 20-plus point games, which I believe he will do. This week could be a huge week. Just in his return, going up against his former team. He's definitely seeking some revenge in this one.
I hope he gets it.
It's gonna be wild.
I really do hope he gets it. Honestly.
Yeah, it's gonna be a crazy one. Who do you guys think will get the win in that game? You think the Browns will come out on
Texans
top?
are too trash right now.
Oh yeah,
dude.
easily Browns.
You think they're gonna like blow him out? Like Deshaun Watson?
I think Deshaun Watson's going to come out pissed off. And yeah, I think he's just going to put it all on the Texans. It's going to be a 40-point game, boys.
They'll definitely get the win though. No
Amari
doubt about
Cooper's going to have 3 touchdowns, hopefully.
That's your boy.
Yes, it is. I miss him. I miss him a lot.
Still won't
I
help
don't.
you make the playoffs, though.
What?
I said still won't help you make the playoffs, though.
Yeah. No, I meant it on the Cowboys. I wish he was.
Oh,
Yeah. All right, moving on to question 8. There has been tons of speculation as to where OBJ will sign. When he signed with the Rams last year, he went on to be a legitimate fantasy option. Where would be the best destination for him to put up similar numbers, if not better numbers? I feel like OBJ on the Bills would be the best option for him, fantasy-wise. Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They have Stephon Diggs, which I think he gets double-teamed, which would take a lot of the pressure off OBJ if he was there. So OBJ would be getting a lot of targets, which means more catches, more touchdowns, more yards. And I think that he would have a good end of the year with the Bills, for fantasy-wise. But for real life, I want him to be on the Cowboys, obviously.
You know, I said earlier in the year during one of our podcasts that the Giants would be the best fit for him. and I'm going to stick with that answer for this question as well. I think he would really benefit with a return to the Giants. Last year when he was with the Rams, he put up 537 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then the Giants, as good as they have been this year, one of the positions that they lack is a true number one wide receiver, right? I think they
Correct.
would really benefit with his return. He would be their guy to get the most targets. Like, you get a lot of targets, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that would solve the Giants' problems at receiver for this year at least.
Yeah, they got Slayton, but that's really
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do with Slayton as your number
And
one?
Kenny Galladay, which
Ye-
he fell off the face of the earth.
I don't even know what happened to
Galladay's
Galladay, dude. But take that and the fact that I said this already, but take that and the fact that he's played for the Giants before. Like, I just feel like there's no better option than to return to the Giants, So yeah, I'll go Giants.
An excellent storyline that would be. But I was saying, I think in our last podcast or one of our last few podcasts, that I thought he was going to go to the Giants, but the Cowboys beat the Giants on Thanksgiving, and we all know, like,
It was
who
the
Odell
battle
is.
royale.
He wants to be this big, like, star. I mean, he already is, like, this big freaking star or
He
whatever.
wants to be bigger than.
But key words is the star. He wants to play for the freaking Cowboys, and I think that's where he's going to probably sign with now. But I feel like he would get the most opportunity to be the guy if he goes to the Giants. There he will be the number one receiver, like you said. He'll get the most targets and not have to worry about guys like CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, or Michael Gallup, or even Noah Brown getting in the way from having big games.
James Washington is coming back, too.
I did see that.
And James Washington coming back. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And Darius Slayton will be the number 2 and the only person who really does stuff offensively for the Giants other than Saquon. So in this case, the Giants, again, would be the best fit for him in fantasy because I believe Daniel Jones will find ways to get him the ball more often than Dak would.
That's pretty valid.
Yes, sir.
I like it.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
So moving on to question number 9, which team has had the best fantasy defense up until now?
So I came down to 3 teams for this one, and I was honestly trying to figure it out myself. So I had either the Cowboys, obviously, the Patriots, or the Jets. Ultimately, I decided to go with the Patriots. I feel like their defense right now is their identity because they've had a great defense for a while. And so far on the year, they've had 12 interceptions, 6 fumbles, 37 sacks, and 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, like I said, it's their identity on the New England Patriots right now after Brady was there for, 20 years. So, yeah, I'm going to go Patriots.
I'm gonna go with the Cowboys. They have the number 1 defense in fantasy right now. They're actually tied with the Patriots at 112. The Cowboys have an easy schedule the rest of the year. They have the Colts this coming weekend, and I think that they're gonna stay at their average. Their average is 10.2, and they could easily score a little bit under that. They probably will because it's just 10 points for a defense in fantasy is just insane. Like you just don't see that, especially this late in the year. But I think that they can sustain that, and they will finish the top defense in fantasy.
I agree. It was a close one between the Patriots and the Cowboys for me, but I think by the end of the season, the Cowboys will score the most points in fantasy and be the top defense. I mean, like, look at all the freaking studs they have on their team. Like
Parsons, Diggs.
they're absolutely
Insane.
loaded. Freaking, they have Armstrong.
Yep. Armstrong,
And-
DeMarcus Lawrence,
Yep.
and Sam Williams upcoming. Oh my word, he's doing very well. Vander Esch is still good. Yep.
I wish I could say that the Eagles' defense was going to be top, but they have
They're
struggled.
good. They're good.
They've struggled recently.
I think Gannon's holding that
But-
defense back,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
really holding them back.
Like look at our defense before we had Dan Quinn. It was trash. It was the worst in the league, and now look at him.
He's a great defensive coordinator.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
He choked versus the Packers, but I mean, he was the Falcons head coach. Like, what do you expect? Love you, Dan Quinn.
Cowboys can't beat the Packers.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
Aaron Rodgers just owns them.
Yeah.
Will say though, had it not been for the injury this past Sunday, CD would be the league leader in interceptions coming into the season. Gardner Johnson, not Lamb, because Lamb doesn't play defense.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what Aaron Rodgers' haircut looks like. He's still beating the Cowboys.
Yep,
Yeah.
but that's okay because we won't have to see him in the playoffs, so that's all right with me. All right, moving on to question number 10. Who has been the biggest fantasy disappointment?
I'm gonna go with Cam Akers. Pretty easy here. He was ranked 44th on Fantasy Pros website for top players in fantasy coming into this year, with his highest scoring game being 10.1 points in Week 1, and everything else was just under that. He's been shit all year.
Hey, you're not the one that traded for him.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
made my smart
man, that
move
sucks.
at the beginning of the year whenever I decided to draft him for some reason because I was stupid. But I drafted him and then traded him over to Sam in a package deal, and Sam decided to accept that. Thank you, Sam.
I mean, at the time, it didn't seem like a bad idea, but now it just seems like a terrible
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
trade. But
Terrible trade. All right, well, I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor. It might be controversial, but he was drafted number 1 overall in most leagues, and he's averaging 14 points per game. That is not a top pick in fantasy. In the beginning of the season, he was not doing good. He had like a 5-point game, 9-point game. That's just not what everybody expected him to be. Everyone expected him to be the top guy like he was last year, putting up CMC numbers, but he just hasn't done that. And I think that is why Jonathan Taylor is the biggest disappointment this year.
yeah, I also went with Jonathan Taylor. Like you said, Ethan, he was the number 1 pick in a lot of drafts this past August. And if I had done number 1 pick, I probably would have taken him too.
Oh, me too.
At the time. And I'm glad I didn't. And got Henry with the number 2 pick.
And then I got
but,
CMC with like 4, I think it was.
yeah,
I'm
4 or
so surprised
5.
I got him.
But yeah, no, come this time last year, he was at 1,122 yards, 11 touchdowns. This year, at week 13, he's at 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is a huge step back. And
Big time.
yeah, if you drafted Jonathan Taylor, I'm sorry for
L.
you. It's not the worst draft pick in the world, but at number 1, that's pretty trash.
Facts. If you could redraft right now and you had the number 1 pick, who would you pick and why?
Want me to start with this one
Yeah,
too?
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll say a few things before I answer this question. So I probably wouldn't have changed anything because, like I said, I had Henry with my pick, and he's been very good for me this year. Had it not been for Cooper Kupp going down, I probably would have said him.
Really?
Well, Cooper Kupp, dude, he was killing it
A
before
wide
he went
receiver
down.
number 1?
I had the number 2 pick, bro.
Oh.
Oh, you're right. You did say
Yeah,
number
Yeah,
1.
yeah,
the
no-
question
I
is
mean,
number
Like
1.
if you had the top pick.
I mean, you wouldn't take Cooper Kupp?
Probably
No,
next.
point.
I mean, maybe next year. But I mean, thinking about this year, it's like you got to go running back first.
I guess you're right. Whatever. I'll answer the question.
Yeah.
Eckler. I went with Eckler. I think he's been one of the most underrated fantasy players for a very long time now. Not just fantasy players, one of the most underrated players in general. He doesn't have a game under 10 points this year as well. Every game he's played has been over 10 points. 554 yards, 7 touchdowns. A freaking stud. I would have went Eckler.
Yeah, dude, it doesn't make sense how Derek's freaking like 3-8 or something.
He's in last place, dude.
3-9. Is that what he? 3-9.
Yeah.
now? Yeah, 3-9, and he had freaking Eckler on his
Wow.
team. Like his team didn't look bad coming into the season, and now he's like 3-9. Like he's like terrible.
He has a
and
decent
everything.
team, too. I don't understand what's
Yeah.
going on there, but hey, shout out to my boy Derek.
I gave him I gave him freaking Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh,
and,
for Swift.
and Jahan Dotson, who was injured for the longest time.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Swift, and who else did I get?
Was it Waddle? Or no, not
No,
Waddle.
I tried to
Not
get
Waddle.
Waddle, but it didn't happen. So
Oh.
yeah, I got Swift. Oh, Swift and Hunt because I traded you. Hunt
That's
then.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's pretty valid, boys.
Yep.
All right. Well, there is no other answer that you should have other than Austin Eckler.
So we're all in
He-
agreement.
Yeah. He's
This is the first
yeah.
time.
He's
All in
averaging
agreement.
23 points per game. He had 20 rushing yards this past week and still scored 25 fantasy points. Like that's just insane. He's a wide receiver and running back at the same time, even though he was a wide receiver this past weekend. But 20 rushing yards, and he scored 25 fantasy points. Like, what?
He's a strong ass mofo. You can tell that.
Yeah,
mofo
he
hits
is.
The weight room.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I don't have to say anything else because it's Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
Yep. If I could redraft right now and have the number 1 pick, I'd pick Harrison Butker.
Oh, yeah.
Austin Eckler first. So he has 255.1 points this year and is averaging 23.2 points a game, which is the top scorer in the running back or wide receiver position. So obviously it would be solid to take him first overall.
All right, moving on to question 12. Excuse me. What was the worst injury one of your teams took this year, and how did it affect your team overall? So I'm going to pick Dallas Goedert. I know it's a tight end, but the tight end position is it's very scarce. So if you have a good tight end, your team's most likely going to be pretty good. I picked up Juwan Johnson, and he dropped a goose egg, 0 points. And before Goddard got hurt, he was averaging 13 points per game for me. And that's just a huge hit for a tight end position because if you have, like I said, if you have a good tight end, your team's most likely going to do good. And 13 points for a tight end is pretty good. And I know Travis Kelce, but that's different. So
He'll be back though. So
yeah,
Goddard
yeah,
will be back.
he'll probably be back for my playoffs, which is good. I need him for my playoffs because I'm not gonna keep picking up these different tight ends, hoping that
Yeah,
they
I got him in my
they
other
get
league.
garbage points like 3 or 5 points.
Yeah.
Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, dude, you got me
it's-
0.
It's
Come on.
tough with tight ends in a 12-man league for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Sam, you just dropped Tyler Conklin recently?
I did.
see
He hasn't
that.
he hasn't been doing anything, bro.
Yeah,
He started off really strong and then just went downhill from there. He had like one solid game, like
Mhm.
midway through the year, but he just nah.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I really haven't been hit too hard with injuries this year. At least not any major injuries, but I
you're gonna
think
jinx yourself, dude.
you know what? Let's hope that doesn't happen. But all right, but no, I think for this answer I'm gonna go Damian Harris, mainly because I traded fucking DeAndre Hopkins to get him and Terry McLaurin because, like I said,
Oh.
dude, listen, he was suspended for 6 weeks. I didn't have any besides Mike Evans. I didn't have any true like number 2 receivers on my team, so I needed to go and get somebody that was gonna help me win at the time, right? I couldn't risk to wait 6 weeks at the time to end up like 1-5 or 0-6.
Yeah.
You know?
Because it's too late at that point.
Yeah. So I go and make that trade, thinking, okay, maybe I just got a solid deal. Like maybe McLaren. He's not bad. He's
No.
not bad.
He's good with Heineke. So.
Yeah. Like he might be able to do something, and he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been as great as Hopkins. But anyway, going back to the question, I get Damian Harris as a result. And the first few starts, he looked decent. He seemed like he could be a solid flex guy. Then he goes down week 5 against the Lions. Ramondre Stevenson comes in. He starts tearing it up and balling. And at that point, Harris lost his job.
Yeah.
Walker's loving that over there because he's got
Yeah.
Stevenson on his team.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was just downhill for Harris. He wasn't averaging the points he was getting at the start of the year. And at this point, he's hurt again, and he's on my bench full time. I might even drop him.
I would.
So
yeah, you probably should with that.
yeah, Damian Harris hurt me the most, mainly because of who I lost. But I'm still in the playoff picture as of right now. So that's
good.
all that matters.
That's all that matters. Exactly.
Yes, sir. Walker?
So I picked Brees Hall as my biggest loss at the running
Ah,
back position.
Oh
yeah.
no.
Which was a absolutely huge loss.
Yeah,
I mean, I was freaking stacked at running back. I had freaking Ramondre Stevenson, Swift, who's not doing that great this year, but Dalvin Cook,
Yep.
and then Brees Hall, Ramondre Stevenson, Dalvin Cook and Swift. Yeah, so it was
Oh,
those
yeah,
those
that's pretty
four
good.
is who I had. But I would have probably picked or no. So since losing Brees Hall in Week 7, my team has been 4-1 since then. So I'm like 8-4 on the year now for our league, and currently sitting in second place. About to face Jimmy this week, who's in first right now. But yeah, Brees Hall was for sure my biggest loss, but it hasn't affected my team too badly, honestly.
No,
Was what I was going to say.
4-1 without him. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
So do you prefer an 8-man, 10-man, or 12-man league, and why?
See, I do like the 12-man's format. I think the playoff scenarios are a lot more organized. You know, you can get a solid 6 teams in there, and then have 6 teams miss. Whereas in a 10-man team, you've got 6 or 4 or 6, depending on what your settings are. But 4 or 6 teams in the playoffs for 10-man leagues. I do not like the fact that on waiver wire there's like barely any options at all, especially at the tight end position, right? Like you just
Oh
said.
yeah, there's no one.
So there's really not a whole lot of talented guys out there that'll do well fantasy wise. But I will say there have been a lot more trades than ever when we were in a 12-man league. At least since all 3 of us decided to start doing fantasy football.
Yeah.
Like I think this year I've seen more trades than like ever. You know, so I think 10 and 12-man teams have their pros, but they also have their cons. I do not like 8-man leagues though. I think 8-man leagues are kind of cheap. So yeah.
Then you don't know who to start in your 8-man league.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm gonna agree with Sam. I think 10-man is the best because you can't really stack up one team. Now, if you have an 8-man league, I mean, one team is just going to be stacked, and there's going to be good guys on the waiver wire, and you just don't know who to start, who to pick up, or what. And I think 12-man league is too much because there's no one on the waiver wire. You just get a bunch of scabs on the waiver wire, and yeah, I just think 10-man is great because you get some good guys on the waiver wire, but you know who to start and who to bench. And yeah, so I got to go with 10-man.
Yeah, so I've done 10-man like every year until this year. This year is my first year joining an 8-man league, and then I created my own 12-man league for the first time. I normally always do 10. I like the 12-man league the best though because I've completed 4 fantasy trades this year, which is the most I've like ever completed.
Yeah.
Normally it's like 1 max, and it makes me feel more like a GM. Like the waiver wire is a lot weaker, so it's more of like a strategy. Like you
Yeah.
have to try and trade with people and like talk with people and make trades that you think are going to work out best for your team, which they've helped my team tremendously this year. Every trade I've made has helped my team like win games and just be better all around. I've got better players on my team because of it, and even the waiver wire, like I've picked up some solid players on the waiver wire, like Curtis Samuel earlier this year. He was balling out for the most part.
Yeah, he
and then
was.
Josh Palmer recently, I got him. But like with that, if you don't notice whether the players' projections go up or not, which you got to check like throughout the week and shit a lot. If you don't check that like right away, or you see like news about an injury, then you're kind of screwed in a 12-man league, which is like the only bad part, I guess,
Yeah.
about it. You got to be like the first to like get there because there's 11 other teams you're playing against. But yeah, I like it because you have to have depth with your team overall. Every position needs to be filled up, and
All right, Sammy boy.
you got to be all around solid. Because if you're not, like if you get injured in one position and you're weak there, then you're gonna be screwed in a 12-man league. You got to have people that are gonna be able to back them up and also put up points to help your team win consistently.
I'm sorry.
Sam's dying
Sam's
over
dying
here.
over
Take
here.
a drink, buddy.
Can I grab another one, bro?
Yeah, dude, go ahead.
All right.
Sam loves his Millers.
Sponsored by
I do.
Miller Lite.
Go Millers.
Not
the best
actually,
choice.
but
Cheers.
maybe one day we'll be sponsored by
Hopefully.
Miller Lite.
I hope Miller sees this and doesn't destroy
Be a
us for having
commercial
their logo
next
on here.
month.
But anyways, that's all we have for questions today. Thank you for tuning into the Zoinked podcast, and thank you, BLV Studios, for letting us do our podcast here in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. You can follow them on Instagram at BLV Studios. Please like, subscribe, and comment on anything you guys would want to hear us talk about in the future or any guests you would like to see on the set. Also, follow us on Instagram at Zoinked Pod, which we finally got up and working now. Didn't get freaking canceled
We
4
kept,
or
yeah, we
5
kept
damn
getting canned
times.
from Instagram.
Yeah.
Freaking
Doesn't work as well
bullshit.
when you just follow people like it did maybe 10 years ago, but
Yeah, I don't know why they
yeah.
did that shit. but
Bots.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
Times were different back then.
But yeah, we'll be posting reels of our episodes on the Zoink Pod Instagram account. Thank you guys again for tuning in. I'm Walker Wiest alongside Sam Howie and Ethan Varnicle. Until next time, peace out.
Peace.